I'm sorry.
For what?
Lieutenant Baldovich, I didn't know she was your girlfriend. That wasn't cool.
It doesn't really benefit Bud Manstrong much that Brock apologised, but it benefits the viewer quite a lot.
FlynnsArcade.
Hi, this is Flynn's Arcade, and this is my video about the Venture Brothers episode, Guess Who's Coming to State Dinner, with special reference to this book here. Before we start, please can you do me a favour and drop the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and now, let's go. In this episode, the Ventures visit the White House, where Bud Manstrong is being recognised for his bravery as an astronaut. Unfortunately, Bud's mum is behind a sinister plot, which is foiled by the boys with the assistance of Abraham Lincoln's ghost. The setting of the White House is incredibly realistic, with reference to real presidents, and Bud Manstrong and his mum are also fairly realistic characters, but being the Venture Brothers, this is quickly subverted with the introduction of ghosts and super science. The animation style of this episode is really taken up a notch, and the backgrounds of the scenes around the White House are really beautiful and realistic, to the chagrin of Jackson Public, who bemoans the way they weren't nearly as good in I Know Why the Caged Bird Kills, which is a great episode which we're going to watch after this one. The episode was written by Jackson Public and Ben Edlund, and Doc Hammer's only comment in the book is, "I don't have one damn thing to say about this episode." Jackson Public says that one of the pitfalls of writing this episode was wrestling with how to write the president, whether to include him at all, or whether to use a real person. He wanted to write a blustery Republican, but made a conscious effort not to be too partisan, so included Clintonian foibles.
Cass, I'll take that blowjob now.
But Jackson Public says that he just wound up making crass shitty jokes that seemed like I was goofing on something 10 years too late. Originally, there was supposed to be a big protest going on outside the White House, who the boys would interact with when they went outside to look for $5 bills and pennies. But this was cut when Jackson Public decided he wasn't fully equipped to write political satire, so in his own words, he went on to make jokes that were beneath him. He also realised that people don't love Bud Manstrong as much as he does, and it was a bad idea to give him an emotional dilemma because the viewers don't really care about him. This is a pretty funny episode, and Jackson Public acknowledges that the only stuff that works in this episode is the main cast, and the boys have some fun and goofy moments. Here we see Hank talking to one of the dignitaries during their dinner with the president.
So then the teacher said, "Johnny, deeper!" And so he stuck it in deeper!
Right, that joke, Johnny Deeper, I'd never heard it before watching this episode, or at least have seen this episode many times and never paid any attention to it, but actually looked it up, and it turns out that it's a very smutty joke. It's not a very funny joke, and so I'm not going to repeat it, but it's the type of joke that quite young people, like young teenagers, might find funny just because it is so smutty. I just really like the fact that Hank's telling this joke to a dignitary at the presidential dinner. I just find it quite funny that he'd do something like that. I also think it's strange that he even knows the joke, because Hank doesn't really know any other young people. He only knows Dean and Triana, and I can't imagine them telling him such a rude joke. And I can't imagine any of the adults in his life telling that to him either. So, there's that thing about Hank channeling dead crazy people. I think maybe that's how he got to learn the joke. I especially like this follow-up to him telling it.
You balls better come with me.
What? Johnny Deeper!
So I quite like the dignitary actually invested in Hank's joke. And here we see this terrifying scene where Dean and Hank meet the ghost of Abraham Lincoln.
You must help me. Colonel Manstrong is going to assassinate the president.
Hank, wake up! It's the ghost of Abraham Lincoln!
Who?
Yeah, Hank's really stupid because everyone knows who Abraham Lincoln is, so I just quite like the fact that he doesn't, and I like the fact his brother knows exactly who he is, so I don't know what's going wrong in those learning beds, but either that or Hank's just incredibly stupid. I don't know, but I quite like that because literally everyone knows who Abraham Lincoln is. And here's another joke with the ghost of Abraham Lincoln and the boys.
Microchip! It's in the back of his head. His mother is using it to control him, and she's going to make him assassinate the president.
It just sounds a little far-fetched.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you said it.
I just like that because they're literally in the White House talking to the ghost of a former president. And this story about the microchip seems implausible and far-fetched. It's just like, come on, you know, you think they could suspend disbelief, you know, in light of everything that's going on. In the second half of the episode, the army are drafted in to try and solve the problem caused by the Venture Dome.
Something. I wish my boy had that kind of creativity.
Colonel Manstrong's going to assassinate the president!
It's not really his fault, though. His mom's controlling him.
Don't give me that psychobabble, son. After a certain age, a man needs to take responsibility for his own actions.
Okay.
Sure, maybe if I'd hugged my thick-headed son more, he wouldn't have started them fires or stolen all that lacrosse equipment. But damn it, sometimes they're just bad apples.
I just love the way that he starts like oversharing about his family problems to anyone who happens to listen. Like, it was a nice little joke, that one. And I enjoy the montage of the boys collecting money from strangers and JJ. I just like the way everyone just gives them the money. I mean, it's kind of lampshaded in that they're all like $5 bills and pennies, but it's still quite funny that people just give him the money, and it's done in such a jovial way. And I really like the bit where he's sat on the wheelbarrow full of money. And there's also a bit of physical comedy here between Brock and Mrs. Manstrong.
This ain't good.
Yeah, I just like that because the fact that Bud Manstrong hates him so much, and then that's happened totally innocently. It's a proper, this isn't what it looks like thing. One of the themes of this episode is that of realism and bringing the Ventures into the real world. And Jackson Public said it was very exciting to put them in the White House. And in many ways, the episode is incredibly realistic. I mean, it includes characters like security guy Hauser, who, you know, is very plausible. He could actually exist, albeit in quite a cartoonish way. And Mrs. Manstrong is incredibly plausible, also, you know, incredibly cartoonish. But unfortunately, people like that really do exist. As to the character development of the episode, Bud Manstrong is just as bad as he was back in Careers in Science, or at least in that episode he was joined by Lieutenant Boldovich, who was basically okay and helped mitigate his obnoxious presence somewhat. However, in this episode he's joined by his mom, who was even worse than he is. Jackson Public says that we love Manstrong for his neurotic emotions and his Boy Scout thing, and we love our friend Terence Fleming who did his voice. It's just that he hasn't shown up in the right episode. Mrs. Manstrong is a truly terrible person. She manipulates and bullies her son, and she speaks very badly about her late husband.
His mother. I breastfed this one till he lost his baby teeth, and he's embarrassed by me.
Mother.
Prudish. Takes after his father, the late senator, God rest his soul. Man couldn't find a G-spot without a Senate subcommittee.
Mother!
I mean, that's quite funny, but it's incredibly disrespectful. And she also harasses and assaults Brock at every opportunity.
What? Seriously, lady! Knock it off! I'm not into it!
Smooth.
So she really is a piece of work. Like, you know, she's a terrible character. I mean, she's actually quite a good character. She's just a terrible person. President Breyer is also a terrible person. He doesn't have much of a personality, other than embodying the worst traits of Bill Clinton.
Any of my secretarial staff, except the one in the blue dress that smells like this.
Oh, dear Lord!
That filly's got my name written all over her. Literally, I once wrote my name on the front of her dress with the tip of
And George W. Bush.
I wouldn't do that. They're Nuclear batteries.
Nuclear?
Well, that's not actually a word, but yes.
All right, people, we got a situation here.
Dana Snyder did his voice, but he doesn't sound like the Alchemist or Master Shake, and he went for an LBJ voice, which Jackson Public acknowledges he did very well. It's just that, unfortunately, Jackson Public says that he wrote some bad jokes for him. Abraham Lincoln's ghost is a fairly noble person in the same way as his real-life counterpart was, but he is smuttier. Jackson Public now questions whether using Abraham Lincoln was playing to the cheap seats, and if he wrote the episode now, it would have used a relatively obscure figure like Millard Fillmore, who historians call one of the worst and least remembered US presidents. Here we meet the White House security officer who has a grudge against Brock.
What's the matter? Couldn't hack field work anymore, so they made you White House hall monitor?
You listen to me. Great, Samson. You may be OSI, but here at the White House, you're just another civilian. I got my eyes on you. Both of them.
Yeah, so I don't know why Hauser hates Brock, and I don't think it's ever really described in the episode. There's talk of them being in Vietnam together, despite the fact Brock was too young to fight in Vietnam, but they weren't there for the war, so I don't know what the backstory is, but yeah, those two really don't like each other. I also think Hauser's quite a plausible character. He definitely adds some realism. I mean, it's very cartoonish realism, but does he add some much needed realism to this episode? And here we'll see Brock getting some character development.
I'm sorry.
For what?
Lieutenant Baldovich, I didn't know she was your girlfriend. That wasn't cool.
It doesn't really benefit Bud Manstrong much that Brock apologised, but it benefits the viewer quite a lot because the fact he didn't know that Lieutenant Baldovich was his girlfriend makes the whole thing with her back in the Careers in Science episode a lot more palatable because he didn't know they were together, so, you know, he had sex with an apparently single woman that he'd met on the spaceship. It's far better behaviour than what I thought, and that I thought he knew that she was his girlfriend. So, you know, he actually gets some quite nice character development here, and that he's a lot more decent than perhaps we originally thought. Or it could be just that the fact that in season 2 he is being written quite differently, so maybe it's a manifestation of that. One of my favourite scenes in this episode is this brief clip of JJ at home on Spider Skull Island.
Count on me. Sorry, hon. Gotta work tonight. National emergency.
Little man need Ned help. Ned protect little man.
No, Ned. Thank you. I won't be in any debt.
Ned love little man.
Okay, little too tight, Ned.
Ned give little man the brain vein.
It's okay, Ned. You ready, Captain?
Gassed up and on the runway, Chairman.
Don't wait up, hon. Mwah.
I mean, that's really heartwarming. I'm just so pleased to see Sally and Ned happily living there. I mean, we don't spot the baby Rocket there, but it is nighttime, so I'm guessing that Rocket's asleep. But yeah, I just love it. And also the fact that his friendship with the pirate captains continues. I just really like the way JJ runs his life, and all the people that, like the pirate captain and Sally, who Dr. Bench has met, you know, and discarded. He's managed to form this really nice family unit with. I just think it's really nice to see. So, onto the rating. I know this isn't a popular episode. I recently spoke to some Venture Brothers fans on Reddit about Venture Brothers episodes that aren't popular, and this one came up. And what was quite interesting is that a fellow Brit was on there, and this person mentions that this episode used to be on the Adult Swim UK website all the time. And I used to watch at the Adult Swim website like in the mornings. Like I used to just watch it before I went out every morning for quite a few, you know, for a year or so. And I must have seen this episode a lot of times. Probably because of it being on the website, because, you know, I'd be like, oh great, it's the Venture Brothers, and then it'd be, oh no, it's this episode, but I'd watch it because it's the Venture Brothers. So I actually can remember it like really well, and I think it's for that reason. I have mixed emotions about this, because in one way it's quite strong because it's like a capsule episode and it's got a nice beginning, middle and end, and it's like a, you know, a very self-contained narrative, and that's pretty good. It also looks great because you know, as Jackson Public said about the backgrounds, the animation's really, taken up, and the standards of animation in this episode's really high, and that's great. I also think that some of the characterization's pretty good. I think that Mrs. Manstrong is, a plausible and terrifying figure. I think she's incredibly well written, and to an extent Bud Manstrong is. It's just the difficulty with this episode is that there are so many unlikable characters in it. I mean, the president, like President Breyer, he's terrible. He's like a facsimile of a few different presidents, and it's like the worst features of all of them, and he lacks the charm or charisma for him to actually be entertaining to watch. He's just he's kind of a hate sink, so he kind of reduces the score quite a bit, and it's just the combination of him, Mrs. Manstrong and Bud Manstrong all being in the same episode kind of reduces the score like quite a bit, because they are very difficult to watch, and we could have really used quite a bit of a bit of levity. That said, though, is the actual writing around the Venture family is really good, and they're actually very entertaining to watch. I enjoyed that bit. I really wish that, having read the book, I really wish that other things had been included in the episode. For example, Jackson Public thought about not including the president at all, which I think would have been quite an interesting device to use, because then we could have just imagined what the president was like rather than actually seeing him. Although I do think Dana Schneider did an excellent job with his voice acting in it, so it would have been sad to lose that. I also would have liked to have the inclusion of Millard Fillmore as the president rather than Abraham Lincoln, because I just think that would have been quite, very funny to see, especially if you're like me and you didn't know who that person was and have had to have looked him up, and so I would have quite enjoyed that. And I would have quite enjoyed to have seen the cut plot about the protesters outside the White House and how Hank and Dean managed to get money off of them. I think that would have been quite entertaining to see, and it wasn't included, but I can completely understand why Jackson Public chose not to, and I can also completely understand why he wanted to actively make the episode non-partisan, and that really brings a lot to it, because if it had been obviously, on one side of the political spectrum, it would have, it would have made the Venture Brothers into something that it isn't, and so I'm quite glad that he did that. It's just though that you can think, well, if you want to make non-partisan TV, it's probably not a good idea to include high-profile politicians in the episode at all. But here we go. I think he made a decent go of it, considering the challenges. I think he tried his best, and some of it came off really well. So, in light of all of this, I'm going to give this episode an 8 out of 10. It's a funny one, because I have bad memories of it for the reasons described in that I saw it a lot of times, like several years ago, on the Adult Swim UK website, and so I remember it being quite poor. But actually watching it through to make this video, I actually quite enjoyed bits of it, and it's to the credit of Jackson Public that he acknowledges what didn't go so well in it and how he would have done it differently. So yeah, it's okay. I don't think I'm going to be rewatching it anytime soon, but it doesn't suck as much as I remember it, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So that's all from me. Please let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I mean, I don't know if it's a bit of a hot take, giving it a fairly high score. I wasn't sure what score to give it, and I decided to give it quite a high one, and I'm quite surprised myself, really. So please let me know if you agree with me, and let me know if you like this episode as well, or if you dislike it. Please let me know, because I'm very interested to find out what people think about it. If you don't know what to say, could you please drop me a sort of Go Team Venture or a Spanakopter, or ignore me in the comments, because that helps grow the channel, and give the video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So unless something comes up in the meantime, I'll see you next Sunday.